everybody. Welcome to our Saturday recap with Matt for the week of August 22nd, 2026. So, Mr. Haddo, what all happened during this week?
Well, you can go to see part of it on my LinkedIn newsletter. I think some things that we're watching, and they're very important to the community, is the what exactly is happening at the DEA. There are rumors that are flying that the delay has been attributable to the fact that the DEA is trying to figure out what the precise language should be. I know that they've been reaching out to scientists in the field, so there's obviously some review going on. The 70H community is crowing about the fact that there will be a 15-day delay where they will solicit more comments. I don't know if that's true. It would be a little strange for the DEA to ask for additional comments when, under the Controlled Substances Law, the way that it works is when the DEA publishes, you cannot make any comments, and it's not subject to judicial review, and it becomes effective no sooner than 30 days later. So there is, and this adds to some confusion, there is a request for comments that was posted by the Assistant Secretary for Health at the Department of Health and Human Services, and that expired at the end of July. They could extend more comments there if they chose to do so. So I don't know about that confusion. I think they may be getting a little ahead of themselves. Because the way the process works, it's an internal DEA decision. And if they're looking for any advice on it, it would be with experts, not with the general public. So, and as much as I would like to then say, well, hey, could I come on down and sit down with you guys and tell you the way it ought to be? That's not the way it works. And so we'll see. I expect that whatever publication that the DEA makes in the next couple of days will give us an indication of what direction they're going. My personal belief is that you are going to see a 7-OH ban. There could be discussion about the pseudodoxil MGM 15 and 16, which comprises a significantly smaller consumer public group, and so maybe there's some tweaking that needs to be done there. But I think they've got the 7-OH thing pretty well down. We'll see. So that's one thing. I know that yesterday the Georgia Blue Ribbon Commission on Kratom Exposures to Youth and Other Retail Substances was once again literally just a clown show for Representative Townsend, who is the chair of the committee. He, by the way, is entitled to have his anti-kratom views. He has them. He has been, for the last 3 sessions, trying to get a kratom ban enacted. He's been unsuccessful. He's tried, various ways to manipulate that, but he's anti-kratom. And the only reason, from my understanding, that he was giving the chairmanship of this study group was because he got his bill got removed from the House Rules Committee. That would have substantially banned kratom. Now, it's interesting because when he and I talked yesterday, both before and after the hearing, he was unwilling to acknowledge the plain fact that he deceived the committee. It's called their I can't remember
Youth exposure.
No. The committee during the legislative session.
Oh,
it's subjudiciary something. But anyway, he had then come to the committee at the last minute with a substitute bill. Okay, and it's common. And the only way that the committee members can know what a new substitute is, it pops up on their laptops that sit in front of them in the committee hearing. For whatever reason, there was a glitch. And so and of course, we could not see it. Same thing's supposed to happen for us in the audience. We couldn't find it either. Something happened with the House, posting system, just didn't work. So the chairman finally said to Representative Townsend, describe the main points of your substitute bill. Well, do you know what he left out? He left out a provision that said that all kratom that's sold in the state of Georgia in finished product form had to first be having been grown in the United States.
I remember.
That is a de facto ban. Mm-hmm. And he acted like, when we talked to him yesterday, the lobbyist that we retained was standing right there, who's a former majority leader of the House, who understands the legislative process very well. When we confronted him with it, he acted like I didn't do that. That's a flat out lie. Now, maybe failure of recollection. Maybe that's it. So let's see if, and contextually if that works. He's chairing the committee. He's there for a committee hearing, and he hears that he misled the standing committee in the House of Representatives when asked, what are the major points of your substitute bill? And that's the substitute bill that made it into the Rules Committee out of committee because they believed him. They said this is a regulation bill, and we didn't like other provisions of it, but this one that he withheld deliberately. Now, maybe he doesn't think that's such a major thing, right? If you're wanting to ban a substance and you take away the source material for it, and you don't mention that when you're having a discussion.
His other provision was putting it behind the pharmacy counter.
Mm-hmm.
That's another issue we brought up with him and said, you did that knowing that the pharmacists don't want. He goes, oh, no, I talked to, and then he specifically named 3 members of the pharmacy board and a pharmacist board, the group that oversees pharmacists, and they wanted it. Now, our lobbyist stepped in and said, Rick, that's not true. You didn't get any sign off. There was never a review of, nor was there a vote on the provision that you put into your bill where you told everybody the pharmacists want this. And here's why it's so absurd. Pharmacists are trained to provide counseling to patients on drugs that are approved by the FDA. They don't have time to go through the 30,000 dietary supplements that are on the market. And the idea, and there's probably more than 30,000, the idea that anyone credibly could say, oh, the pharmacist want it. Because here's the major reason. If you have a product that you hand across the counter and you sell it to a customer, and that customer has an adverse event, you're in the chain of liability that would literally give an orgasm to Matt Wetherington.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it would.
Because you could sue him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the pharmacists are not interested. They are protected by the information that's provided to the customer based on the labeling, and everybody's seen them. When you have a prescription drug, you pull it out and there's a big disclaimer statement that is, you spread it out and you can cover your whole mirror with it.
Yeah.
Give all these warnings. The pharmacists are not going to intentionally put themselves in harm's way of being later said, well, you didn't provide proper notice, which is the favorite go-to. That's what we're going to sue them on. And for Rick Townsend to represent that the pharmacists were willing to do this without there being exhaustive debate and a big discussion and a vote, it's simply not true. But this is the casual relationship that Representative Townsend has with the truth. And he sat there and told us, oh, that's not true. I confirmed it. That's like me saying that, I decided that I wanted to add another addition to my house. And so I went down to my 4-year-old grandson and said, do you think this is a good idea? And he'll say, Poppy, that's a great idea. And so I went and contracted to add an addition to the house. I might have left out a major influencer in that decision, Mrs. Haddo. This is craziness on his part, but more importantly, he doesn't get it. He thinks it's all okay. He thinks, I'm all justified in what I'm doing. And when you have someone that's willing to shade the truth, and just because of something you believe passionately in, that's the deal. So we filed a complaint. You can get it on my LinkedIn newsletter. You can see the specific information that we've asked the speaker to review. The bottom line is we want it to be fair. And I'm going to tell you that there's no one on the planet, with the exception of Dean and Cameron Francis and a couple of the KDA people, that would think that the lineup of witnesses that have been selected over the last 2 hearings would be considered fair and balanced to anybody. It's not.
It's like the Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we're just sitting there, that's all there is anti-kratom.
Yeah.
No,
And think about if the tables were turned, Mac. If the
Oh,
tables were turned, the KDA and all them would throw a temper tantrum, and they'd be wearing the Karen wigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell, 2 things on that. One is that I was tempted to say during the hearing that this was just like a kangaroo court. But if I did say that, the kangaroos would sue me because it ain't nothing like a kangaroo court. This was far worse. Kangaroo court was just, well, you're biased and you put it up there. But there was nothing in that hearing that allowed for a fair hearing. And here's really the interesting part. He invited specific individuals to testify. And by the way, God love them. They're with the exception of Miss Cave, who comes to the table with a heartfelt belief that Kratom obviously had a negative impact somehow in their lives. Miss Cave, I only make an exception because she is part of KDA. She makes a big deal when she makes her testimony. Oh, well, they're going to say that I'm weaponizing my grief. She is, because what we don't get is a good, honest look at what actually caused the death of her son. Her son died of drowning, and he had underlying health conditions that any reasonable person, I think, would at least consider as a potential in the cause of death. He also had some other medications, which she readily acknowledged, dismissed as being part of his therapy, as though that would never have any impact on what they're doing, right? I mean, I remember, it must have been 40 years ago, I was prescribed a medication and I had an adverse reaction to it. And I walked outside to my car, in the pharmacy, and I took the first pill because the doc said, take it as soon as you get to the pharmacy. And I passed out in my car. Now, it was because of a reaction to the medication, right? Those things happen. And certainly if I have an underlying health condition that precipitated the prescription of that medication, and then I took it, that's another thing that's worthy of consideration that might have caused a problem for Miss Cave's son to have an experience where he passed out and ended up drowning. That could happen, right?
Yeah.
So she I know she feels strongly about this, and I want to give every family the due respect they have. The tragedy is unimaginable, and I wouldn't even have to say that, except they've stood up and said, my son or my daughter died of kratom. And every time we get some kind of information about the talk screen, the record sort of undermines their claim, and it certainly did with Miss Cave's son, and Susan Eppert the same way. All of these KDA moms and fathers who are showing up at these hearings, and they want to be able to have their voices heard without a challenge. And I get it, I understand it, I do not question the grief in any way, but when they show up and say, we just want our voices to be heard, it is fair to say, we want a countervailing viewpoint heard. It is fair to say, we would like to see the talk screen and the autopsy report. Now, sometimes those autopsies don't tell you much, and because there's much that isn't tested because of what the CDC calls the lack of precision in postmortem investigations. So that happens, but at least we ought to be able to see the record. And I know that the Restucci family in Idaho is another good example. We're testifying out there, and they get up and they're outraged. One, that we would question them. I get the grief, all that. They were outraged that we would dare to question the medical examiner. Okay, look at the medical examiner's investigation. It is absurd, because there are lots of indications that they put in the report they didn't follow up on. This is like you go to one of these cop shows and you watch it and you see somebody made a mistake. Well, somebody made a mistake here because they didn't fully investigate, didn't look at, or didn't evaluate in context the circumstances under which this individual died. And I would encourage everyone to go and read what's available on the public record about the Restucci case. This isn't the wonderful traditional family situation. This young lady had problems.
Yeah.
And she had prescription medication she either wasn't taking, and they didn't fully investigate that, or that she was taking in combination with so many others that it was like a pharmacy in what they found at the death scene. So certainly that should have been evaluated in the context of a death. And so there are all of those issues, but I can tell you, and the point I tried to make, and I think at least one member heard it because they asked me about it after the hearing, was the plain fact that every single adverse event and every single death gets reported to the FDA adverse event reporting system. And when you go on that system, it warns you that you cannot take the data that is submitted there as conclusive, and you shouldn't. Now, the KDA people think, well, hey, look at the FAERS database, look at the number of kratom exposures. They warn you before. You can't even get on unless you click the box and I'm not going to use this, or this information can't be used for this purpose. They just go and use it. But here's the important thing about that research that's done. It is a surveillance system. So it's designed to identify clusters of deaths that are associated either with an individual substance or a cluster of death that is associated with the co-ingestion of another substance. So they look for dietary supplement to dietary supplement interactions, or drug to drug interactions, or drug to dietary supplement interactions. And if they identify, and they do regularly, any kind of cluster of deaths which raise to the level to require a black box warning, they do it. And so your doctor sees a black box warning on, let's just say Benadryl, and you say, don't use Benadryl if your patient is using, don't prescribe it if your patient is using kratom. You could, if there was data to show that.
You know what? The common denominator for me viewing some of these autopsies is
Benadryl
and SSRIs.
Yeah.
And then kratom in there as well. So I don't know. There needs to be a black box warning somewhere,
And the FDA could issue a black box warning to require the dietary supplement manufacturer to do the same thing. Ultimately, you can get it. Now, the fact that the FDA has not done so, right? Why? Well, maybe the answer is as simple, right in front of our faces, because they've not found the data that would justify doing so. That's the first and obvious and probably the easiest explanation for what's going on with that surveillance system. But what the KDA moms and dads want to do is say, oh, look at all these reports. And they use the cumulative effects. And then when you listen to the testimony of is it Hillary Tuslick from the End Kratom addiction, she threw out all of these statistics, and it was
ChatGPT'd it. She had to ChatGPT'd it.
However she got it. The problem is, at the end, everybody was glassy-eyed. What is she talking about? And here's the truth. You can take a surveillance system like the Poison Control Center, and let's say you're down in Waco, Georgia, and you could have a kratom exposure report, and it comes in January of 2026. And then you can have a second report that comes in February of 2026. And then Hillary could grab onto that data and say there was a 100% increase in the number of reported adverse events under the Poison Control Center in Waco, Texas. I mean, what? This is not what this data is supposed to do. It is a public health safety mechanism, which lets us look in context at what's really happening. And what does the National Poison Control data show? That everything was stable in terms of kratom exposures reported by the Poison Control System. You got to 2023, and I don't know, you got a huge jump. You continues all the way to 2026. Now, even someone who is as blinded by their objective as Hillary Tuslick, not that Dean Cameron or Francis ever could, but certainly she, since she's spouting the numbers, could say, well, you know what? Maybe I should find out why the spike, right? Why the spike? And by the way, embedded in that spike is one Cameron Francis.
Yeah.
Because when a report is made to 911 by his father, I think it was in April of 2026, that's a data point that goes on to the information database. So Cameron is embedded in all that. Now, we all know that Cameron says, hey, my father was right when he said in December of 2025, the kratom industry doesn't like my son's story, Cameron's story, because it has nothing to do with alcohol, nothing to do with extract products or any of the synthetics. Nothing to do with it. That is in December of 2025. Well, no, what the kratom industry, and by the way, he loops us into it, what the kratom advocates don't like is when someone lies to them. And that's what he did when it came to the data in 2025, in preparation for going up and parading that data to the Virginia legislature. And and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I would have loved to have seen a transcript, or at least be a fly on the wall to hear what Dean and Cameron Francis said to Governor Spanberger when she held the ceremonial bill signing, which just imposed a new labeling requirement, but one that is inconsistent with federal law, by the way. And they thought that was the best thing since post toasties, and they paraded it out to everyone as such. But did they tell the governor? Oh, by the way, 3 weeks ago, there was a 911 call, and what I said in December of 2025, that no one likes this story in the kratom side, because my son had nothing to do with alcohol, nothing to do with any of these extracts or synthetics. And the 911 call was a tutorial for the 911 operator who was unfamiliar with what 7-OH is. And Dean Francis told him in detail and described the effects of 7-OH, not the effects of natural kratom leaf products, the effects of 7-OH, where he was hallucinating. And by the way, he was drinking. So a contributing factor in that 911 call was an empty bottle, a fifth of whiskey that his son, at least in Dean Francis' mind, had drunk, was saying, when he's holding the empty bottle, saying, I'm not drinking. It would be like me saying, I'm not drinking Diet Coke as we sit here.
I'm not drinking Clearly Canadian.
Yeah. So there you have this bizarre kind of, oh, well, let's now tell we never said that he didn't use these substances. We just said that his story had nothing to do with them. Well, I don't know what the definition of a story is, but I think it means the whole thing, not what you get to selectively do. So what we find out is that in the Epoch Times article, it was Cameron who told the reporter that I was trying to find something that would give me the same effects as alcohol, but not as as strong.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And what he says today, no. And his father says it, no. It is kratom came first, and then the alcohol, because they want to tell the story that kratom was the gateway to his alcoholism.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah, because it's important when he's standing before a police officer who was about to arrest him for shoplifting, for stealing whiskey or alcohol. I'm not sure.
Beer.
Whiskey. Yeah, it's stealing beer and I think beef jerky.
Yeah, beef jerky.
And
Yeah.
he's telling the officer, well, I have an alcohol problem. No, he didn't mention he had a 7-OH problem. Of course, we all know that doesn't really qualify as a kratom product, according to Dean. He said, and I agree with him, by the way, it's not. He should separate them. But he says it's alcohol. Well, why don't we all tell the truth, right?
Mhm.
So now the news story is, well, kratom introduced him to alcohol. That's not what he said to the Epoch Times. So his son must have gotten the storyline messed up early in the storyline, by the way, because now it's embarrassing to them. And so then they conflate that and say, oh, alcohol is really destroying him. They didn't mention that his son, which he now admits, went to a treatment facility in Mexico for the treatment of, and you fill in the blank, he was going down there for a specific treatment that commonly is used for alcoholics.
Ibogaine.
Yeah.
No, was it Ibogaine?
It was Ibogaine. And
Yeah.
that's in early this year.
Mm-hmm.
What? This kid is in the middle of this crisis that he's having, and his dad's out there in front making him the crusader, the centerpiece of his argument, for whatever bizarre reason Dean Francis is doing. I don't know. And he's entitled to his opinion, by the way, and everybody can, just judge his credibility based on what the facts are. But he keeps saying, here's what did the Representative All call it, your fact pattern. Here's fact pattern according to Dean Francis, and here's fact pattern according to the evidence and data. And so this is a tragic thing. And why this has been trotted out to the center stage in the way that it's been done, to expose his son to this kind of difficulty in having to explain what it clearly is a very complicated journey on addiction, is really unexplainable. I don't know what it is, but
I know. I mean, from what I've seen so far, is Cameron is the carrot. Cameron is the carrot for Dean to be dangling him, and now they're on this mission, collecting donations. You know?
Someone made the point to me the other day, and it's a fair point. I'm not sure that I would agree with it, but they think that Dean is an addict for the attention.
He is.
Oh, yeah.
As powerful as anything else, and maybe there's a case to be made for that. But it certainly has shown that it doesn't matter. It does not matter if he can get as we know, Senator Mike McKell, if he could go along on that journey to the top
Yeah.
of the the Mount Everest to kiss that albino
They could
yak on
take
the lips,
turns kissing the yak.
just get a camera
Or
up there.
one could kiss one side and the other could kiss the other side.
Yeah. This and that's in context. This is tragic because you have a problem where
Yeah.
you've got this kid that's at the center of it. He's 30 years old, but still, obviously a family member. And I get that motivation. I have been in similar circumstances with one of my sons that I had to make a choice if I was going to continue to be an empowering agent in his life or the deception that he engaged in. If I was going to be the guy that said, nothing, that you can't attack my son. I knew my son had some severe issues that needed to be addressed. His birth mother was an alcoholic, and when he was born, he had alcohol syndrome. Was it fetal alcohol syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
And with that came all of the challenges with developmental issues, his competition in school. He never fared well in those circumstances, and the tragic consequences of that were misbehavior, always in trouble, badgering other kids, bullying other kids. And we did everything we could, honestly, everything we thought was necessary based on counselors who told us to give him a treatment program. It was enormously expensive. At the output, the one thing that happened with this kid, and he's now 40 some years old, is that he at least got on the right track after high school when he left our home. And he's not a perfect kid to this day. But I like to think that the foundation that we provided to him was a lot of the honesty. Was we did, I've said it before. I knew this kid was lying when his lips were moving, and I didn't trust anything he said. And he had some great excuses for his misbehavior, by the way. He actually took a baseball bat and from his car window went down our street and knocked over everybody's mailboxes because he was ticked off about a girl that he wanted to date, and she said no, and she's a smart girl, and he knocked over everybody's mailbox with a baseball bat.
With it, drive by or walking and doing it?
No, he was driving. He was swinging it.
I mean, we kind of did that stuff back in the day too.
But he said
I lived in the country.
He said he didn't do it, and we didn't have Ring cameras in those days, right? But I had a parent whom I had deep respect for as a neighbor, and was always a kind and wonderful person. And he said, I saw him do it. Now, do I believe the kid sitting in front of me with the baseball bat in the front seat of his car saying, Dad, I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
These are difficult things that every parent has to deal with. Well, not every parent, but
Well, it makes it worse when you're airing it out publicly like that.
Yeah.
It just makes it harder on the whole family, in my opinion. I mean, I know we all do the best that we can at the end of the day as parents, but that'd be the last thing I would want to do.
Yeah, and I think so. So that's Dean Francis and Cameron Francis. It's really too bad, and I see now that that this is where we end up when we get into these discussions, and it is, in my opinion, a retreat for them to go back and say, "How dare you attack this kid?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not attacking the kid. I'm attacking what he's saying. And I'm watching his lips move, and I have a problem with what he's coming out of his lips. And I think that's a fair kind of thing to at least evaluate if you thrust that kid on a national platform. And that's what he's done.
Mm-hmm.
He's got, now it's rumored to me that they have a LinkedIn page. I say rumored because he blocked me and Cameron blocks me. I mean, why?
Cameron blocked you?
Oh yeah. I let everybody up. Now maybe Cameron, there's different groups. They have one called the AK Boys, and I can talk to Cameron there, but I think Cameron's blocked me. Maybe not, but his dad has, and Hillary has, so I don't get to see what they say. People report it to me.
I didn't know that they had the AKA Boys. What the heck?
Yeah, that's some chat group, and that was started for the purpose of Cameron being able to explain, at least in his view, of what the facts were. And then he constantly says, I've already explained it to you. Well, I went back when he said it the last time. I went back and looked at all of the explanations. He did explain it to us with about 6 different versions.
Yeah.
Okay, which version are we talking about today? So, but again, this is I think an indicator of the very serious problems that anyone confronts when you're having struggles with alcohol. or substances, right? When I was a kid, I grew up in a household that with a stepfather. My father died when I was 4 years old, so I never really knew him. But my mother married an abusive alcoholic, and I saw firsthand how drunks, and this
Yeah.
guy was a horrible drunk, how he abused his family. And my mother was so desperate, and I'll never understand this to my dying day, so desperate not to rock the boat and to lose that economic foundation she had. She told there were four boys in our family, and all a year apart, and she lectured us: do not ever raise a hand to him, don't say anything to him, just walk away. And we honored that for the most part. I was 17 years old in my senior year in high school, and he came home. And what would happen, it was a very interesting circumstance. We lived right next to a steel mill. We were poor because he drank all the money away. And he would, after work, go across the street to the beer garden, and he would get drunk. And all his buddies would say, "You better be careful, Bill, because the Haddo boys will beat you up when you get home." So he came in the door ready for a fight every time.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
had never had any evidence of that. He walks in this night, and my mother, who was fixing dinner for him, because she had pretty much timed where he was, and he walks in yelling, and I happen to be standing in the doorway of the kitchen, and when my mother said to him, "Bill, please calm down," because he was screaming, and he punched her right in the face. And so I stepped between him and I said, "Next one's through me." And he said, "No problem." So when I finished with him, he was down on the ground. He was drunk. I mean, he was actually a very
Yeah.
strong, but he was drunk. So I had an advantage over him, and I was a strong young kid. And my frustration, I let it out, and I was kicking him, trying to get him to wake up and stand up, and he wouldn't do it. So I finally picked him up, and I threw him out in the front street. We lived near a steel mill, which was a very busy area, and the front street was busy. And it was only a couple of seconds, and cars are screeching, stopping, and the police were called, and he ended up in the drunk tank for 2 days. When he came home, he said to my mother, straight choice, either him or me. And my mother, for reasons that I'll never understand in my life, said, "Can you find someplace to stay, Mac?" And so I went to a buddy's house, and I finished out my senior year of high school. He refused to acknowledge me, to let my mother do anything. She was not permitted to come to my graduation in high school. These are the circumstances around abuse of substances, in this case alcohol, that lead to these tragic consequences in families. And so I feel for it. I get it.
Yeah.
And I've tried to understand throughout the rest of my life where my mother was, and I think I do understand that she was impoverished. She had very low self-esteem. She just was afraid that if he left, then she would have these, we had three sisters, two half sisters and a sister of ours, living in the same household. And that, it would be devastating economically. So I think that was her hook, and that's the leverage he had on her. So whatever those things are that are used by people that abuse these kinds of substances, they're real, they have family consequences, and you behave in ways that are irrational, unexplainable. And I think that we're seeing some of that, at least in my opinion, play out in the Cameron family and the Francis family, I'm sorry. And so we just have to accept that, but that does not give them the right to take the platform they've taken and try to make it into something that it's not. And on the hearing in Georgia, the obvious feed for all the information that was provided to the committee by Chairman Townsend was fed to him in large part by the Dean Francis.
Yeah.
Because they played a video of a vendor, and it was apparently some goof off thing that the vendor did, and it was advertising his products, and he was throwing his product into crowds, and it looked like this is an AI generated thing that was, I think, a year or two old. So it tells you how it was early AI generation. And the chairman asked me, "Do you condone this kind of thing?" And I could not see the video very well, so I didn't know that what he was actually asking was, well, this looks like he's appealing to children. And of course, we do not in any way condone, nor do we support anyone marketing a Kratom product to a kid. And I think I said that, but I didn't know for sure what this was. I find out later that it's now posted on Dean Francis's End Kratom Addiction thing, mocking this particular mocking this particular vendor, saying this is what he did. This was a private TikTok that he apparently put up over a year ago, and he was just goofing off with some of his high school buddies that he was getting attention. It never was on a product platform, but this is the levels at which Dean Francis will go. Now, if we all acted like Dean acts, he wouldn't be able to find anything because we'd block him.
Yeah.
But we're not afraid of the truth. We're not afraid of the truth. So what's he talking about? I heard we talked a little earlier before we started. Someone said I blocked them on LinkedIn. This would be a problem for me because I can barely get on LinkedIn, and I certainly don't know how to block anybody. I've been the victim of being blocked, but I'm not the perpetrator. So if somehow there's a glitch in the system, I'll do whatever I can to restore anyone, because I don't care if you like what I say. You have a right to say it, right? And I have a right to respond. That's all. And we should have that kind of ability. But what happened yesterday in Georgia was that the slots that were given in the first hearing, you had one AKA person, the rest were either neutral, and there are a few of those, and mostly all anti-kratom. Look at it. Anybody with any common sense or objectivity would see that. And then yesterday, it was bizarre because in the first hearing in Atlanta, there were more than 24 pro-kratom advocates who came to testify. They were required to register with information for contact. They have that in the committee records. And yesterday, when we get there, he is invited. And by the way, some of them remotely, not just they had to be there.
So you actually heard them. I heard a couple of them say when he called to invite me here today. So, I mean, he personally called these people.
Yes, he did, because they're sending him emails or whatever. So he invites them, but he doesn't invite the people that signed up, that took the effort and the time to come down to the hearing, that could and were not available or allowed to testify, solely because he structured the committee to be full of Andrew Kolodny and Templeton and all the anti-kratom people that consumed all the time. He allowed his good friend, Mr. Breedlove, to go on a 20-minute sermon-like rant. Now, he called me out for a tirade. I mean, that's bizarre. I mean, his buddy, by anybody's standard, it was pretty embarrassing that he got onto this, he was preaching at a church against kratom. He let that go on for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But he wasn't going to let me say anything. He was done when I called him out. And, he tries to cut me off. And I tried to plow through that. I don't know how effective it was, but at some point we have to take a stand. And so our complaint to the speaker was very simple. Chairman Townsend has the right to have an anti-kratom view. He can continue to pursue whatever deception he chooses in the legislative process to promote a ban on kratom. He can. It's no problem to me. He has a right to say whatever he wants in an open forum about kratom. At least we have the opportunity to respond. Now, when he's the chair, he has a duty, an absolute duty, to be fair. He doesn't get to choose, but he's not.
He's not being fair.
He did not ask a single member of that committee for any advice on who should be invited. Not a single one that we've been able to find. Now, that's ridiculous. He went into his email chain and he found the strongest anti-kratom people he could, and he calls them up and says, "Hey, you want to come and beat up on the kratom people today?"
Yeah.
That's what they were doing.
And none of it was really regarding youth exposure. And I will say the last guy that talked about vaping, it's like everybody was kind of surprised because they're like, and it's like, that's what this is supposed to be about, like retail substances besides just kratom that's available to you. So it's like he just threw him in there just to look good, to make it look like he was
right. And that whole thing was the most unfortunate abuse of governmental power.
The first one too. The first hearing and yesterday. It's like if you haven't,
hearing was even a little more fair. It was not fair by any means, but just
a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, now you all need to understand that when he approached me afterwards, he wasn't happy, which I understand, and he's very forcefully, reprimanding me and saying, "You need to understand, this isn't the end of it. There's still two more hearings."
Oh
right?
gosh.
I said, so tell me, Rick, who would be on the next two if I hadn't raised this objection now? Are you going to talk? Or you think the speaker's going to call you up and say, you at least ought to put on a charade of fairness? You don't have to be, fair, but at least act like it. At least give them their voice. So I think that there will be a more balanced presentation in the next two. We're hoping that's the case. But And then he made this ridiculous excuse. Well, you should have just told me who you wanted on the program. I said, we did. And you rejected all of it. I said, you got your list from your emails. And by the way, you have a lot of emails that you could have picked some, because I know that you've gotten, according to one of the members of the committee that told me he'd gotten over 400 emails on this. So you might have dipped into that crowd and said, you want to come and talk and testify. But no, it's if you're anti-kratom, that's the selective sieve that you have to go through in order to be on the list of approved speakers at the Georgia, mind you, not the Rick Townsend charade, but the Georgia Blue Ribbon Committee on Kratom Youth Exposures and Other Retail Substances. That should be fair. It should be, balance it out. Now, it'd be one thing if there weren't anybody on the other side clamoring to testify, but that's ridiculous, and that's what he wants people to believe. Now,
and then he brings in Susan Cave, who lives in Florida.
Yeah,
she lives in Florida. She might have previously lived in Georgia, And then the first mom or grandma that testified, didn't her grandson, wasn't it 7OH?
It appears it was.
Yeah, but
see,
she's gone on this.
They want to mesh everything together, of course.
Exactly. She keeps calling it kratom.
Even the preaching guy he kept saying, I'm talking about 7OH, but then he kept saying kratom for 20 minutes. So it's like,
So there are the two things that I think I mentioned. The first one was that when one of our advocates in North Carolina was typing an email on a Google platform, it said, we want to oppose 7OH, and the Google the assistant program says, no, you should change that to kratom. Right? It just shows you the bias has now creeped into our computer systems. But that's just the fact of life. And why? Because the 7OH people introduced their products as kratom, so people thought they were. They want to continue to call it kratom because they're desperately trying to avoid a scheduling of 7OH. So this is something that we elect people with, half a smarts to say, I'm going to find the truth. And the quest of the chairman of that committee should be about finding the truth, about being fair, about being equitable. He was none of those things. He is on a crusade, and this is the traveling road show for Rick Townsend to vent his anti-kratom message. And one of the representatives criticized me for openly challenging the integrity of the chairman. And I had a chance to talk to him afterwards, and I won't repeat exactly what he said, but I don't think he would say again what he said to me in the open hearing, because he got it. He understood that, when I told him that we had no input, that Townsend was just ignoring us, and that he was staging all of this in order to promote his narrative, which did the following. There are two victims in that process. One are the members of the committee who come in good faith, accepting an assignment from the speaker to serve on this committee. And then the obvious sacrifices associated with traveling all the way out to that remote district in Brunswick to participate. That's a little bit of a haul. It's about 3 hours or 3.5 hours from Atlanta. So they had to make an effort to get there. They should be exposed to a balanced presentation, all of the evidence. And then, more importantly, you have an entire legislature that is going to look at the report that's generated by this committee. And I can tell you there are two things are going to happen. I think that report's going to be substantially different after our complaint than it would have been. And secondly, you're going to get an opponent's report. We're going to file a report to allow the legislature to see how badly Rick Townsend, as chairman, abused his authority and railroaded a message through that had nothing to do with reality or the truth. It was all about promoting his anti-kratom crusade. And the truth of the matter is, when one of the families that he referred to that was harmed by kratom, and this was a very tragic case where the kid ended up in a mental institution and later took his life, which the family blames on kratom. When the I have to be careful here. When a local law enforcement official heard that story, he said, I've seen the entire thing. This kid had multiple substances, multiple mental health problems, and it ain't kratom that killed that kid. But yet in Rick Townsend's mind, because the family says it, I'll believe it. Because Dean Francis says the reason the kratom industry hates us is because it had nothing to do with alcohol or any of these extracts or synthetic products. That's what he said. And so we take that as the gospel truth, and we go down and swear to everyone on the Bible, this kratom stuff's bad. And none of the truth is allowed to filter out when you get that kind of a blockade on what he's doing. So that's why we made the complaint. We're going to pursue it. He asked me what could be done that would satisfy us. I said, start telling the truth, show us what's happening, accept that there is a counter viewpoint here. And he said, well, I've always done that. I've always done that.
No, he hasn't.
Which told me they ain't changing, because it hasn't been like that. He actually said to me, it's been very balanced.
Yeah.
That's what he said. I said, I'm going to go back and have someone count the amount of time that you gave to the anti-kratom people against the ones who are pro-kratom. I think you're going to see that what you just said is absolutely not true. Oh, Matt, no, you're wrong. I think it's been very balanced.
I must have been at another meeting.
I've been following I follow pretty much down all the states, but especially in Georgia, I've been following this soap opera, all these years, and it's like he's just mad. He is mad. He's throwing a temper tantrum. He's probably incentivized through Matt Wetherington somehow, some way, because that's his little buddy. And if you don't know who Matt Wetherington, he's the anti-kratom child attorney out here.
Well, I did tell him. I'd gone out that morning and I bought a Monster drink at a gas station. I had purchased some Imodium at a convenience store, and I had purchased Benadryl. And I told him afterwards, I said, you know why you're not going after Monster drinks in this committee, or going after Imodium or Benadryl? Because Matt Wetherington doesn't have any cases against him.
Mm-hmm.
I said, if he did, I'm sure you bet that we would all been here talking about those things. And he goes, oh, you really blow that up. That's not true. I said, Rick, I said, I was standing in the hallway giving you the amendments that we wanted to strengthen the enforcement. And you said, I need to think about it. I said, we've got 5 minutes before we go back into that room where you're going to answer whether you're going to accept any of these amendments. This was in the Senate Health Committee hearing. And he walked down the hall, called on his phone. Now, anybody want to bet who he called? It was Matt Wetherington.
Yeah.
And he comes back and says, no, we can't accept those. Now, these were amendments that strengthened enforcement. And when he went back in, Matt Wetherington shows up. And this is the famous picture when the senator, I think it was Senator Glass, he asked Wetherington, how are we going to enforce this? And Wetherington sat there dumbfounded. He didn't know what to say. And Matt Wetherington walks up and he puts his hand and he tells him, I was sitting right there and I heard the answer, local law enforcement. And so
the one I heard was knowingly and willingly.
That's another issue.
Yeah.
So the enforcement was going to be in the hands of local law enforcement. How do they know the difference? And what our enforcement mechanism was, register the products, publish a website from the state that shows all of the registered products that are qualified for sale, that are compliant with the Georgia law. Then a retailer can go on and say, can I sell this product? They're not going to listen to a distributor. They're going to say, can I sell it? Because it's either on this list or it's not. Easy to enforce. And if I'm a local law enforcement guy, I walk in and say, wait a minute, that Kratom X or Kratom 708Y, that's not on the list. It's out of here. Now, that's easy. But he didn't want to hear that, because guess what? The only thing that Matt Wetherington wanted in that bill was a requirement that if you sell kratom in the state of Georgia, you have to register with the Department of State as a domestic organization. For what reason did we need that? Does any consumer call up the Department of State and say, is this a vendor that is allowed to sell here? Nobody does that. But you can sue them.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you have a location where you can serve your papers, right? Yep. And who was the little water carrier for Matt Wetherington and Eli Cohen? Who was it? Rick Townsend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a sham, and yet they think they can get away with it. So
they got to him when he was freshly new to the Georgia representatives.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No question about it.
So now he's being molded.
So you guys, you can't watch this. I mean.
Okay. Okay. So you know what? I do want to ask you, when you had that back and forth between Michelle Awe and her, it's supposed to be yes and no questions, right? When you said that kratom is FDA approved, and so can you clarify meaning medical or health?
It's health. So under the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, it was passed in 1994, there is a pathway for a kratom manufacturer for a product that was not in commerce prior to October 15th of 1994. So any kratom product that was in commerce prior to that is legal. Powders and capsules, they were dominant product forms. After the October 15th, 94, if you have a kratom product you formulated into a beverage or into a extract, you are required to go through the new dietary ingredient notification process. Okay, so you submit your evidence and data. You have to go out and collect it. You have to provide whatever that is, and that the FDA is going to stop you if you just pull stuff off the internet. That ain't going to play. You have to do your own research, and you have to show it to them, and it has to be very specific. So you then, as a manufacturer, take it to the FDA and say, I am submitting under DSHEA the new dietary ingredient notification. The FDA then has the ability in a 75-day window to evaluate the submission. They can then object. And when their objection comes back, the company and the FDA can resolve whatever the objections are. At the end of that process, if the FDA doesn't accept the responses from the company still has the ability to go on the market. The burden at that point is on the FDA to say, no, that product's unsafe. I'm pulling it off the market.
Right.
That's the process. There have been many companies that have gone through the NDIN process under the DSHEA Act that are on the market today using that process, meaning that they are fully regulated, subject to a withdrawal from the FDA. So is there, I'm going to talk with Representative Law. She's a very smart woman, by the way, very smart woman, and a doctor. And I understand where she comes from and what her view of what kratom is. I get that. But the fact of the matter is what she called the fact pattern being different. It's not different. It's the law. And the FDA has the authority to go in and swipe up all of those products that have been through the NDIN process, because guess what you have to do when you file an NDIN? You have to put your name, the name of your company, you have to have the address, you have to have a lot of information, your DUNS number, all kinds of identifying material. So it would not be difficult for the FDA to, if they objected enough that the kratom product in their view was dangerous, they simply go out, knock on the door of the company address that was provided to them and say, guess what? You're off the market. Has not happened, right? So there's that. Now, the other thing Representative Law and I disagreed on was that she asked me, sort of the issue about metrogeny being converted into 7-OH, and doesn't that make it a metabolite? So maybe I didn't do a good job explaining. I thought I did, but this is what I was trying to say to her, and I'm not sure that we could even agree now. If you have a parent compound, and let's say it's metrogeny, in this case it is, the parent compound gets ingested. In your liver, that parent compound then gets a portion of it gets converted into 7-OH. So that's now a metabolite, right? So the metrogenin is the noun in this process. The metabolizing process is the verb. And the output is 7-OH. That is not kratom. That is not the parent compound. The metrogenin that is left over after that process is the parent compound, less the amount of that parent compound that was converted into 7-OH. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to, and like I say, she's a very smart woman. I have no beef with her at all. I think she just saw this, and I think that we could probably come to some agreement on what was said. And if I didn't explain it correctly, I'm willing to go back and, reconnect on that issue. But the idea that the metabolite is metrogenin, in my view, is just inaccurate. It's not. It's the parent compound, which is a constituent of the plant. 7-OH is not. It is a metabolite that has already occurred before it gets to the manufacturing process. So when you have a parent compound in the United States, you have metrogenin and parent compound X, which is 7-OH, and that goes through your gut. And then you have the parent compound metrogeny that survives, and you have the parent compound 7-OH that gets enhanced along with some of the metrogeny. And there you have the important distinction between a natural kratom leaf product and a chemically manipulated one, as defined by the FDA and HHS and DEA. Trace amounts of 7-OH that are available in the parent compound, and then after the product goes through your liver, and this is the critical point, because the anti-kratom people have glommed onto this. They say, oh, the gut converts it into 7-OH, so therefore it is a illegal compound, an opioid. Well, that's not the way it works, because the amount of 7-OH that's produced by your liver is actually impacted by two things. One, the actual amount of the material. Never in the blood plasma levels have been tested on people that have ingest natural kratom, and then the output and blood serum levels, the blood plasma levels, they don't ever find that there is a level of 7-OH that exceeds what's in a 7-OH product on the market. So it's a very different process. And the reason is the liver works very slowly. It's like an army of these little molecules and cells that are fighting and processing anything we eat, anything, including prescription drugs and all that. And so they're working through the process. So it takes a long period of time for it to process. So over time, your body is going to deliver a relatively low amount of 7-OH, never gets in the blood plasma levels to a level like a 7-OH product. Then, and this is the part that I hope I have a chance to talk to her about, if you take a 7-OH product, which has already been converted chemically from the natural parent compound metrogeny, it's now flipped chemically into a majority 7-OH product. When that's ingested, it attacks the liver like a freight train. And the liver goes into crisis mode. And the 7-OH people saw that wasn't very efficient, because what did they want? They want, as soon as you consume it, for you to have an immediate effect. They don't want your liver having a war with 7-OH. So they then went to the predominant mechanism for delivery to sublingual strips and chewable tablets, because that doesn't go through your gut. Goes right through the blood-brain barrier, goes right to the sector of your brain. It gives you euphoric high. You get that boost real quick, lasts for an hour or two, and boom, you're crashing. And same as it's the signature effect of a traditional opioid, which is why it's going to get scheduled. So that's the difference. And I hope that I can explain that to Representative All. I think she's a remarkably smart woman, and I hope that that we're going to be able to say that. And you know what? Now that I said that, I said she's a remarkably smart woman. She is. She's a remarkably smart legislator, remarkably smart medical doctor. I saw the meme that was put up by the anti-kratom people that showed me in a wig and said that I was, demanding to talk to the manager. I mean, you talk about a sexist kind of thing. You cast women as being, the criers, the whiners are showing up, and I want to speak to the manager. I mean, what? And this is ostensibly done by a female pharmacist. Now, maybe she's not the one doing the memes, and maybe this open truth is something different. I don't know. Maybe it's some people say it's Dan Gibb up in Ohio. I don't know. But you talk about a bizarre kind of meme that puts a female wig on me. I mean, there are lots of other things you can do that wouldn't make you into a sexist pig.
It's not open truth.
Yeah, it makes
it's not Open Truth website, y'all. It's I don't even want to give the website name.
Well, it's antikratom.org. I don't care if they hear it. Go see the bizarre shit that they put up.
Yeah, it's really weird.
It is so weird. And they went through and they did a expose on me and Laura.
Wait, an expose? They just reiterated what you say on your testimony.
And gave me a cute meme. They gave me a cute meme. I love it. It's better. It's the better meme versus that Susan Cave. Susan Cave that went and testified in Georgia. This is the meme she made of me.
Yeah.
So I got one. I'm redoing my office, but I got one. It's going to be a couple-month process because I'm never around. But I got one that was great, where it shows me kind of looking over the edge, and there's all these.
Oh yes.
I'm having that framed.
Are you?
Listen,
I have a sense of humor. I think some of this stuff is funny, but
yeah.
Does it get us to the truth? That's the key. And now, was it their intent to be funny? No, they were just going to mock me. They spend all their time grinding about, oh, Mac made this mistake in his life, or Mac made this mistake when he was talking. Hey, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, and I'm willing to own up to them. I told I told Rick Townsend that one of the biggest mistakes in my life was trusting him because he told me I could trust him. I said, you know what? I could smack myself for that because I can't trust you. And he can't believe I say something like that because he's a representative. I sat in in a legislature. I get it. I think you get puffed up with yourself and you think you're the smartest person alive. When I was in the legislature, I made a few mistakes and I tried to learn from them. But I think he's a little obstinate on this issue. Well, no, I take that back. That he's a lot obstinate on this issue, and he doesn't see the forest for the trees. And the only way I'm hoping the speaker reins him in. I don't expect that to be a public whipping, by the way, but I think the speaker is going to have to deal with him and say you can't play this game in calling into question the integrity of the entire legislature because you want to run this rant and this anti-kratom crusade.
That's literally what it is. It's like just drilling that rant in every single meeting.
To borrow a word, rant. What did he call what I was saying? My
tirade.
Tirade.
I mean, give me a break. There was just, but see, he didn't want me talking anymore.
See, the thing of it is, Mac, is that with him and with other people in the community, I ain't gonna name no names either. It's like they don't expect Mr. Mac Haddo to get fed up. Like everybody reaches their breaking point.
Well, you could if you play Mr. Nice Guy and you let people walk all over you in life, you're never gonna. You have to speak up for yourself. You have to advocate for yourself sometimes.
And what we saw yesterday at the Georgia committee, you spoke up for the kratom consumers.
Yeah,
right.
Not just ones in Georgia, but in the United States. You stood your ground yesterday, and we applaud you. We freaking applauded you.
Thank you, but I want you to know that I still consider myself to be Mr. Nice Guy. That was what Townsend heard yesterday was Mr. Nice Guy. He hasn't seen Mac Unleashed, and he keeps this game up, and we're not stopping. I mean, this is what he's doing is fundamentally unfair. He's misleading his colleagues with his nonsense. We've got a pattern of behavior where he misleads his colleagues, and he either doesn't remember when he does it, or he gets amnesia, or he gets blackouts. I don't know.
Maybe so, but I don't buy it.
Okay, so well, actually, let me read you that Reddit comment that I got. So I understand Mac's frustration, but sadly, I think this does more harm than good, especially if other members in the committee are friends with Representative Townsend, which they probably are. I agree that the committee is biased, but if anything, the committee will only be more biased against Mac and potentially other pro-kratom testimony when he gets super defensive like this, and kind of half lies by saying the FDA approves kratom for medical use, which can easily be disproven if they ask someone from the FDA to come to the committee, clarify their position on kratom, or respond via email.
Yeah. So I took a risk. There's no question that by putting this information out in the way that we did it, that there could be people that were offended by it because I'm calling the chairman out publicly. But subtlety doesn't work in this case. And so we took the risk. Now, there were two members of the committee who showed that they were a little frustrated with the approach. I talked to both of them. They're both now understand why we did it. And one made an interesting comment that he would have done the same thing now that he knows. The problem was nobody knew. Everybody thought this was a unbiased presentation.
Yeah.
I thought this is what the whole issue was. And so I think we needed to do that. It was not something, in my opinion, that could have been done effectively without calling them out. And what I think we'll see is a behavior change. I mean, if I were Rick Townsend, even as bizarrely, insulated as he is and tunnel vision that he has, and I know that he's got Dean Francis on speed dial, as bizarre as all that is, I think he's going to say, I can't afford. And I think the speaker will help him understand he can't afford to make this into the same kind of roadshow that it's been. So that's one issue. I think that the issue that Representative Al presented to me was a yes or no, is kratom approved for medical use or for a health use? And that's the distinction. No one can credibly say that kratom is approved for a health use. Now, that's different than an individual consumer saying that I experienced a therapeutic benefit from consuming kratom. You as an individual are allowed to say that, to experience it, and your First Amendment rights protect you. A consumer cannot say, my product will help you achieve that therapeutic benefit, because that becomes illegal commercial speech. So that's the distinction on a medical use. But what Representative Ah, and I don't think she fully understood the answer that I provided yet, and I'm going to continue to pursue it with her, is for a health use. Well, yes, there is a health use. There
Oh,
are
so what you previously described was medical. You said health use, but you previously what you described was medical.
medical. Yeah.
Now you're going. Oh yeah, you said health.
I'm sorry. I apologize. So there's no question that there is a process by which the 40,000 plus dietary supplements are on the market today that allow people to make the freedom of choice to manage their health and well-being are what dietary supplements do. Now, the FDA doesn't agree with that, by the way. They don't think that dietary supplements help you at all. And there are some bad dietary supplements in the market that are marketed to say, well, you take this and you're never gonna have knee pain again, that kind of thing. I've tried those things, they don't work. So I think that distinction aside, there is a process which obviously Representative Al was not familiar with, where you have a review of dietary supplement material, in this case, a botanical supplement for kratom. So in medical use, absolutely, she's right. There is no approved medical use for kratom that exists in the United States yet. Now, what the NIH people are doing might lead to something down the road, maybe 5 to 10 years from now. But a health use absolutely is recognized under the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, and there is a process by which a kratom manufacturer can pursue it. But see, this gets nuanced. It's the same thing about the import alert. You saw that the one representative who's a coroner, by the way, whom I will never get on my side, said, well, what about this stuff that's getting in here illegally? Why are we even talking about this? I think his name is Representative Meeks, if I remember. He's a coroner. And he's not going to accept what kratom is or isn't, because he believes in his profession, I guess, that kratom is very bad. So, but the important thing is equally misunderstood. This idea that everything's sneaking through, and what Mr. What's the guy's name? The former DEA agent Townsend, is that his name? Not Townsend. Templeton.
Michael
Templeton.
Yeah.
Templeton. He said every ounce of kratom coming to the United States,
every gram,
and then you have the same thing being done by Andrew Kolodny, who, when testifying up in New York, he says, "Well, I'm no expert on imports, but every gram of kratom coming in is illegal." No, it is absolutely not. How does anybody think in their right mind that there are kratom products being manufactured that the FDA wouldn't be sweeping everything off the shelves if it were completely illegal? There is a process that you have to follow. And if you follow that process, and it's not an easy one, you have to declare in advance before your shipment arrives that you have a kratom shipment. It has to be properly identified as Metrogenes speciosi. You can say, although I'm not a big fan of this, you can say it's not for consumer use, meaning that material isn't then going to be handed to a consumer. There's going to be a sale of that raw material to a finished product manufacturer. That's where the responsibility lies for producing a product that is safe under the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. And that's the control point. Kratom is regulated in the United States. For anyone that says it's not, doesn't know what they're talking about. Kratom is not subject to a complete blanket import ban. They do not know what they're talking about. For these people that like to trot this out, it's like they leap on this pile of sand, and when they get, they see it kind of flowing around and they're losing their foundation, they jump to the next pile of sand that Rick Townsend and Dean Francis, Cameron Francis, are busily shoveling to create that pile. Let's talk about the truth. Let's look at what the reality is. And this idea that they have now formed this cabal, and it is a cabal, with Dean Francis and Patty Wheeler and my good friend Senator McKell out in Utah, and Dean Francis, Cameron. I mean, this list goes on. This is craziness. And at some point, we all sit down and say, you know what? Let's find the appropriate restrictions on kratom products that could be strengthened. And that's what I tried to do yesterday, to explain to them that there is a regulatory model for enforcement that Representative Townsend rejected out of hand. And I should say, because he was being told to by Matt Wetherington and Eli Cohen, that would have provided for regulatory structure. And that would be register your products, publish a website, provide strict regulatory controls, fund it with an excise tax. And did you see the testimony that was provided by Shatterproof?
Yeah.
where she said that in the state of West Virginia, and I promised myself I was going to look this up before I came on. I didn't do it. But if you look at the population of West Virginia, compare it to the population of Georgia, I'm going to take a wild guess. It's at least double. They collected $6.5 million in excise taxes at 11% on Kratom products sold in the state of West Virginia. No one is going to tell me that that's not enough to enforce. I know that what Utah asked for was, I think, 1.5 million. What the crazy Florida Department of Agriculture fiscal note estimate was, I think, 2.5 million. I mean, if you want to responsibly regulate this product by putting boots on the ground with inspectors, you want to have the staff to evaluate applications for registering for your products, maintain a website. You can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it with a lot less.
Speaking of Utah, they're actually looking for someone right now. They're trying to hire somebody for Department of Ag.
Yeah. Well, it's just unhinged the way that you have Senator Mike McKell, who is famous for glossing over the facts or ignoring them, who now immediately jumps on the anti-Kratom bandwagon by saying that that the death that resulted from the ingestion of MGM-15 in a cat's claw product was a Kratom product. And then he has the audacity to say on a news interview, I just don't trust this Kratom industry. What? If the standard for banning products were based on the fact that we don't trust an industry, I don't think we would have lawyers. I mean, what is he talking about? That's the standard. I don't trust this industry. It's bizarre. But this is the kind of extreme behavior of someone who is just on a crusade, and they really don't care, and they think they can abuse their positions because they hold them and say you should believe everything I say about this product, right? And we have the posting that was done on social media where Senator McKell said that he had a constituent. Turns out the constituent appears to be one of, or the person he was talking about when he said on his social media post, I'm going to do everything I can through his law practice and in the legislature to bring justice to him. So I'm sorry. Is there something here I'm missing? When do we let lawyers decide that they're going to help legal cases by passing legislation in the legislature? That's a conflict of interest. And yet now he didn't file the case, but there's another law firm and we're named in the lawsuit. So I'm going to be very careful about what we say about that because that's just their game. But I think it would be worth people looking at whether or not there is a relationship between the law firm that has filed the case against the particular companies and named the AKA in it for some bizarre reason. I think that's at the encouragement, of Senator McKell. And we're only going to get to the truth in what's going to be a years long battle. And in the meantime, you have Senator McKell say, well, look, there's lawsuits filed, and this is a terrible situation. And I don't trust this industry. Well, Senator McKell, we don't trust lawyers. We don't trust you. And if that's the criteria, then be gone with you. Let's get someone that let's get an accountant to pass or to sponsor a bill to ban Kratom. Let's do that instead of the self-interest that you show.
An accountant. Okay. Did you watch the Montana hearing?
I did.
Yeah.
Well,
Same.
there's one thing, as you saw in my LinkedIn newsletter today, I'm still shocked. And I cannot believe it because I know no one in their right mind would believe me if I said that I had hounded the person who lives in Montana, who is the head of the grassroots advocacy organization, Robin Graham, who runs this organization, who went on a rant on February 14th of 2025 and said,
2025, 26.
26, I'm sorry. People need to get off their butts and get out and testify. Now, they've cut and spliced that so many times. That's exactly what she said. Why don't you just admit it? Why don't you be honest and just say, you know what? She said something. She was trying to get people hyped up. But no, they want to say she didn't mean that. She didn't mean that people should get off their butts to go testify at a hearing. And by the way, you heard the actual advice from the chief Moomba in the and that's not sexist, is it? Moomba is, I think, generic term. But you have
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm going to investigate that to see if Moomba is sexist or not. But for the purpose of now, the chief Moomba of the Kratom Gals, podcast said, if you live in the state, it's critically important that you show up because your voice matters. And so there I was with my popcorn, waiting for Robin Graham to testify because, damn it, she lives in Montana. Her voice is critically important. I don't know. The chief Moomba said that. Critically important. And this is the 7th or 8th hearing where you can call in and testify remotely and have your voice heard. And we lost that vote 6-5. Now, that's not the end of the day, by the way, but we lost it 6-5. Maybe Robin Graham, as an influential Montana constituent, I need to relax because I need to take my kratom. Maybe she would have had a difference. What the hell are these people talking about? And they want to say with credibility that they are these advocates and that they're out for the Kratom people. They are apologists for the 7OH group. And this is what I said, and I mean it because this is the last time I'm going to talk to them. They made themselves irrelevant with the joint actions of where you've got Madeline saying, I don't take any money. I don't take any money from the Kratom industry. I never have and never will. Right? That's what she said. And so I simply asked the question, and it got to her, was a report that I'd received from kratom manufacturers, natural kratom leaf manufacturers, who said that she approached them and asked them for financial support for her various enterprises in the influencer game, right? So now, caught, I was going to buy some gloves with red-handed. Caught red-handed, what does she do? Oh, I've never taken a dime. I don't take any money, but I do have affiliate marketing agreements so that when I mention a product and someone buys it, I get a rake off. Now, and by the way, she normalizes this by saying everybody does it. It happens all the time.
I don't.
No. Well, no. Wait, how can you say that, Misty? Because Madeline says everybody does it. And she says,
we don't.
Jen, you guys, you can't be telling the truth because everybody does it. Madeline says everybody does it. And by the way, that's the excuse as to why she did not disclose it when asked whether you're taking money. But I don't take any money. I don't know what the difference is between money that comes from some sort of an affiliate marketing program and it somehow arrives at the bank and you say, well, this is affiliate marketing money, so it's not real money. You can put it in my bank account, but it's not real money because I'm not taking money. But as distinguished from, do I get a contribution to promote your product on the Kratom Gals website or podcast? I mean, they are irrelevant. They've now become the apologists for the 7OH industry. And I've got to tell you something that I honestly and sincerely believe. I think that there are two people there who are really good-hearted people. And I know they feel strongly, and I don't think they're compromised in any way. They have a right to say what they're going to say. They use 7OH occasionally, one case and the other. Twinkle and what's the other one? Twinkle and
Venus or Amanda?
Yeah, no, not Amanda. Venus and I think those people are sincere, and I think Sarah Pitta is a wonderful person. I think her. I don't agree with everything that Sarah and her husband's name is Dan, right?
Yeah.
I think they're magnificent. I think that they're sincere. They put out fabulous material. I mean, the investment and sacrifice they did to do the Kratom Index thing with all the literature, they are wonderful people. We don't have to agree, but I think they're terrific. And I think they're making a significant contribution to the Kratom community. And I can have a disagreement with them. That's fine. But I think that this is the problem, that you get these people that have decided that their niche position in the Kratom industry is to be an influencer. Well, we don't need an influencer. We need boots on the ground. And we need people that are out there willing to make the sacrifice. And I've not seen, and I get it, she says that's not my shtick. I've not seen Madeline testify remotely or in person at any hearing. And yet she is the face of.
Not even for her state when that happened last year.
Yeah. So they're irrelevant, and irrelevancy is defined by the actions of the 7OH, the 7 those people, the kratom gals, and then you get into Amanda. Now, I credit Amanda with having gotten off her butt and gone and testified up in New Hampshire. I think it was great. I think she did in Connecticut too. I think it's great. No, there was no opportunity in Connecticut, but New Hampshire. I thought it was great, and I give her credit for that. But anyone who wants to see the kind of impassioned narrative that she's created, go on to one of these chat boards, and her personal, vitriolic, profane, grossly offensive kinds of statements she makes about me, which are largely untrue, made up, fictional, just so she can make her point, tells you where she disqualifies herself. And so she is not on a list of people that I would consider to be credible in discussing these issues, in my opinion, that would then be trusted or could be relied upon by any other advocate, because she works for a 708 manufacturer and a marketer. I think she's in the customer service. I don't know whether she's still there, but she does. And so for her to say with a straight face, well, I'm not compromised in any way in advocating for 708. Now, the one thing that I would take away from the argument that they make, and I'm sympathetic to it, is that there are people that are left in the lurch with this scheduling recommendation when it comes, because clearly under federal law you are a felon for possession. Different from possession with intent to distribute. And so we are advocating for and have legislation drafted, which is being circulated, that will exempt the possession of 708 as a felony conviction. There will be no criminal results for it. And there's also a treatment issue that should be available. But I'm fascinated by the explanation that Amanda and others have said is AKA did this. Because if AKA hadn't done this,
no,
then, all these people would still be taken care of. The people that did this were the the profiteers in the 708 industry, when they placed their products into the market without meeting the federally required standard for market entry, which they admit they did not do, didn't care, wanted to make humans as guinea pigs for their product. They're claiming today that 708 doesn't kill anybody. I mean, the data and statistics overwhelm them. I mean, this is just something they say to pat themselves on the back. Maybe it helps them sleep at night. And I'm telling you, this is craziness. The data that has been collected that allows for this to be classified as a temporary scheduling requires that this is what you have to do in order to be on the market legitimately in the marketplace, and for people that are using these products, what they should be doing. And all this gets wrapped up into this bigger narrative about, oh, well, I'm a 708 guy and I'm a believer in it. It must be AKA that was responsible because we're the ones, AKA is the one that wanted to make it scheduled. The people that placed it on the marketplace dictated the path to scheduling the moment they did it, because they knew what they were doing. They knew that they had an unsafe product. They knew that it was untested. They knew what its effects were. And you just have to listen to Vince Sanders when he said, we saw this market explode. He said it was bigger than the marijuana and CBD market. Well, I don't know. Tell me what the driver was on the expansion of the CBD and marijuana market. You got a high. You got a euphoric high. The drug seekers were out in droves for those products, and now they're out in droves for the 708 products. Some unsuspecting, because they got duped into thinking this was natural kratom, got hooked, and now they're it's a horrible situation. This is really interesting, and so it goes back to the testimony yesterday by the drug court representative, a woman who had been through addictions. She described her personal experience.
She did amazing.
Yeah. And when asked, well, how long did it take you to get off of this kratom addiction? And she said 2 weeks. Did it require a medical,
dependency? Not addiction,
no.
dependency.
It's dependency.
Yeah.
And I could have closed my eyes, and that would have been Nora Boko testifying there. This is where, and I could see at one point Townsend put his head down. He didn't think she was going to say that. He didn't vet her properly, because I assure you, had he vetted her, she wouldn't have been there. Because if his troop of anti-Kratom crusaders had done their job, if Dean Francis had spent more time, vetting the witnesses instead of putting on a wig as a meme on me, then they would have blocked her. But she snuck through.
Yeah, she was
snuck
amazing.
through.
You know what, Jen? We should show hers too. Honestly, when Shatterproof testified, I was a little bit impressed.
Yeah.
I was a little bit impressed with that.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So I went up afterwards. I think her name is Leah, and I handed her my card, and I said, "You and I really should talk because I agreed with about 70% of what you said.
Yeah.
And the 30% that you said, I think we could have a discussion about."
Yeah.
And now, obviously, I'm not a good reader of people because I've been criticized for not understanding what people are saying. But I got the sense that she was not real anxious to talk to me, and that's disappointing because I'm going to follow up, and I hope that I just misread that situation.
Well, it's probably because you mentioned the donor, being funded and stuff, and Shatterproof is.
Yeah.
Bev has showed me all the screenshots. Well, not all of them, but she showed me one yesterday.
She's worked her butt off over the years, tracking down all their,
And I apologized to her, and I said, I know I put you in the bucket of the addiction recovery centers. It was actually a Suboxone group that funds you. And I said, and you are on their long-term corporate partner list. And I think long-term means multiple years. And you got $150,000 last year. That might have added to her. She scrunched up her face. And I don't mean to be sexist because men can scrunch up their faces too. But I've seen this look from my wife and my daughters when they... I know what that means. And it's because I'm smart. And if through experience, she ain't talking to me. But I'm going to try, and I'm going to see if we can bridge that gap.
But yeah, that lady from the drug court I liked her testimony. Like, Kratom definitely saved her. And she used it as a bridge until she could get to the root cause of her, I believe it was migraines, chronic pain or migraines or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So what at the bottom line, it tells you a lot that there are people out there that are using Kratom responsibly that are seeing health benefits from it. In a well-regulated marketplace would have better protections, and we were giving those. They were rejected, not dismissed. They were rejected specifically by Representative Townsend when we asked him to include these regulations in his bill. Strict fines, all of that. I see the question up here: how would in Georgia online sales be affected? You have to register. You can't sell online unless you register, go through the registration process with an independent certificate of analysis, and then you get on the list. Then a consumer can do the same thing that a retailer could do. You go online and look to see the approved products and in Georgia that have registered, and then you can then buy that product. And that's the process. Now, none of this is perfect. This is a dietary supplement. This is not a prescription drug. This is not a street drug. I mean, this is craziness. But we put in a layer of consumer protections that allows for assurance for one thing. A consumer has an increased confidence in the safety of the product that they're purchasing. It's not for some bureaucrat to be able to say, "Oh, I just got $2 million in order to build a bigger bureaucracy to buy some equipment or to hire some people." That's not what it's for. It's for consumers to be protected. And if it means that we do X being all of those things I just mentioned, fine. But it ought to be legitimate. And I have been in too many meetings where for example, in Florida, the Department of Agriculture said in the meeting where we talked about the fiscal note, where they wanted initially about $10 million. And their justification for $10 million of a funding for Kratom sales was that they had to build a new laboratory. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know, $10 million seems like a lot. And then they said, well, we have to construct the building to house it in. This is the way bureaucrats think.
Yeah.
They can't go and lease space, that might cost them a couple $100,000 a year. They got to build a building.
So they want new real estate.
Yeah. So
I actually have a question about that I was going to ask you today. Well, as far as like the whole, okay, so let's say when the 708 scheduling does happen and it's, completely set in stone and everything, say going forward when a state is trying to ban everything because they say they can't differentiate. I know that I guess they're technically, wouldn't there be like federal federal
Resources.
resources available, I guess, for them to test? Would it be in each state? Would there be funding and testing available for each state if it's something federally or?
So there are two responses to that. First, if the feds actually schedule it, most of the marketplace is going to dry up because
Mhm.
there's no way a distributor is going to risk getting a felony conviction for distributing. And I don't care what the manufacturer offers them, they're not going to do it. And the retailers are going to be in the same boat. So you will see a significant diminishment of the 7OH marketplace by magnitudes. What's left, where you get some of these bad actors that say, I'm going to sell it anyway, then it's a simple phone call to the regional DEA office, and they will send a DA officer to to cite them, arrest them, and then they'll take the product to test for the purposes of prosecuting that individual. So that's the way it'll work. The state does not have to worry in any way about enforcement in the structural enforcement part of it. We're concerned about consumers.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we want, is to get these products off the market. And so the same protections exist. There'll be a spin down process where there'll be fewer of these products. But if there's just one left that puts someone in danger, then that's a problem, right? So that's the reality of it. The state will then be left with a simple proposition. And when I say simple, that's not the right word, with a easily structured regulatory pathway. You have a registration system. You require that the formulation of the product be documented for compliance by an independent COA. You do FDA required labeling that provides appropriate warnings for people, and you have the restrictions on 7OH content and for the extracts. So they can't make them if they're using anything but FDA approved food grade solvents. So you've cleaned up the marketplace. Now, how do you tell the difference between a product that is being sold as kratom and one that it meets that standard for using FDA approved food grade solvents? You have an extract. Is it done? It's not simple, but it's easy in the sense that once you pick it up, you turn that product over to the retailer and say, you have 30 days to produce an independent COA from that company at their expense. And then if I don't trust it as the regulator, I'm going to have it tested by a lab of our choice, and they pay for it. And if they don't pay for it, that product ends sale at this minute. So they have regulatory tools that are available. And
let's go to sorry, I don't mean to cut you off back. Let's go to Tracy's pin comment first, because there's what we're seeing in New York, Mac, is the Oneida County dude. Everything's banned. The sales of kratom is banned. Unless it is FDA approved. And I believe behind the pharmacy counter. I believe those were the two things in it, which is about to happen in Albany.
Yeah, we help is on the way in Albany. We're going to have people there. We're going to be fighting the battle, explaining to them what the differences are. There's going to be a period of time where we have to get state laws aligned with what the feds are going to do. And then it'll trickle down to the local counties and cities. This is hard, and there will be some room for a state to do something more restrictive than the feds. That's why we need federal legislation, not the Controlled Substances Act, where they actually schedule a substance, but we're going to have federal rules and regulations on the sale of kratom products that will allow a state to do something less restrictive, but not more restrictive. And so that's coming. That's just going to take a little time. But most of these counties and cities were reacting to the lack of regulation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to have to undo some of that nonsense. But we're hard at it, and we're going to do it. And I wish I could say there's a silver bullet. There's not. We're going to be at this for a while. There's no question.
So Tracy, help is on the way, dear.
Yeah.
But she does. I mean, yeah, she says, can't states and counties be more strict than the federal law? Like they can still ban kratom even though the scheduling carved out levels for kratom.
Well, the states still can ban kratom. They have the independent authority to do it. So we have to fight those battles. But 7OH is the problem. And what's the driver for a kratom scheduling? And with the scheduling recommendation, it arms us with the information about why the federal government decided not to ban natural kratom leaf products. So then it's what I told one of the two of the representatives yesterday after the meeting. I said, what is it that Rick Townsend knows that the FDA commissioner, the HHS secretary, and the DA administrator don't know? Because he wants to ban all kratom, and the FDA, HHS, and DA say no, natural kratom leaf products are not the subject of our scrutiny. So there's work to be done. This is not, it doesn't end here, but a big part of the problem is going to be terminated. We can focus then on helping legislators and in the state and local, the county and local governments understand what the foundation argument is for why kratom should be properly regulated.
Yeah, I think that's what happened, like, even here in Tennessee, like, or in a lot of these local areas. 7-OH was the problem, and Tennessee wasn't enforcing their regulations. And so, you have these people coming to the city council meetings and saying, we need to ban all kratom. And, next thing you know, so-and-so had a problem with kratom, or and it's all 7-OH. It's all 7-OH. And so then all kratom ends up getting banned.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because
I don't have it here because I'm cleaning up my office, but I do have the baseball bat that my son used to knock over mailboxes. He said he didn't.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, I still have it. I got it somewhere. And he says, I didn't do that, Dad. I didn't do that. So that's part of what we're dealing with here is that, people say, well, it wasn't this thing. It wasn't the fact that my son or daughter was on these medications or illicit drugs. It was kratom. At some point we're going to have to say, you know what, we need to look at the actual scientific evidence, and we're going to continue to fight this. The comment which just was right. The KDA has a strategy where they're going to try to go county by county, and we have to be prepared to do the same thing. So to borrow a phrase from a person who's highly reliable, get off your butts and go and testify, right? That's important.
In-person testimonies, and Jen and I, and I'm sure you too, Mac, that, let me just bring this up. In my Montana testimony, that Senator Boldman, Ellie, I'm gonna call her Ellie. I don't know what her last name. Anyway, she was almost convinced to change her vote based on my testimony because her and that addiction doctor were referencing me when they were talking about it. She was almost persuaded, and then she questioned that addiction doctor and stuck with her vote about the ban bill, wanting the ban bill to go through.
I am a believer in personal testimony, and the cream on top of it and the cherry is a local person. I went to a hearing in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. Oh man, it's been 8 years ago or 7 years ago.
Who was this? Somebody says it's a pleasure meeting you yesterday, Mac. I'm glad I had a chance to speak.
Dude!
Is that Jim?
That's Christian!
Oh, no, okay, Christian.
Christian! Heidi, Dr. Heidi is looking for you because you two both share the same Shari malformation or something like that.
You did amazing on your testimony also. You were awesome.
You have got to hit me up.
So Christian sent me an email, which I asked him to do. Thank you, Christian, for doing that. I'll make sure that Heidi has your information, and I'll circulate it to you as well. If Christian gives me permission, he may not want a couple good-looking babes in his life right now. So, I don't know. Is that sexist? I think it is.
No.
I don't think
so. So anyway, I'll try to connect everyone. But yeah, Christian was fabulous. I mean, you talk about someone who that impassioned, obviously highly credible statement that moved people.
Yeah.
So yeah, great.
And Christian, the way he delivered it, like he was so eloquent.
Oh, there's Dr. Heidi.
There's good Dr. Heidi. She's been secretly watching this whole time. You silent watcher, you. But yeah, so because we streamed, we streamed yesterday. But after the fact, we were talking about how Christian was speaking, and it was just so eloquent. It was just so like, it's like he could do an audiobook.
Yeah. So for the record, Heidi sent me an email afterwards and said, I did not understand what the hell you were talking. She didn't use hell. I knew what you were talking about in part of my testimony. So I want you to know that I can be reprimanded and educated. And I have not been fully educated by Heidi yet, but I'm going to make sure I try to do better. Anyway, I was telling you the story. I went up to Point Pleasant and you can't get to Point Pleasant other than just driving, right? And it's about a 3.5 hour drive. And when I got there, one of the guys on the city council said, "Why would you drive up to this?" He called it a one horse town. And I said, for the very point you just made earlier, this is important. In-person testimony, to the extent we can, and I wish I could do more, really is critical. And by the way, my wife wishes I do more too, without testify. So these are the things that really make a difference. And so a local person, that's really the creme de la creme. That's the greatest. And then behind that, for those that can, personal testimony in person is great. And then, of course, the zooming in is also very effective. So everybody needs to do it. Everybody. Just a second. Montana. Get off your butt.
We do need we do need help in Montana. We need help in all 50 states, honestly, but definitely in Montana, because there will be a revised KCPA introduced, right, in Montana when the state legislature goes in session.
Yes.
Okay.
I would say, Tracy, as far as like reaching out preemptively to counties, I say at this point right now, it cannot hurt to reach out to any of your local areas.
That's what
and
KDA is
just
doing.
Educate the difference before it's too late and somebody else gets to them first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's information that we have available. But, one of the great, I think, resources is to take the letter that was circulated by Commissioner McCary to every doctor in America.
Yeah.
Send that, because I get asked all the time, why do doctors think this? And I said, well, I don't know, but here's what the Commissioner McCary advised them, because doctors don't like us, obviously. So
Wait, hold on, what is that? Mac, you're just like my husband. When I tell him we need to talk, he always thinks he's in trouble too. Well, usually when you tell him a certain way, your husband knows.
no, trust me, I know I'm in trouble when it's given in a certain way. And I deserve it, by the way. I'm completely to blame for every single time my wife is upset with me.
Well, my husband would say the same thing, Mac. So I mean, I think you're probably right.
Your husband's a very smart man. I just want you to know.
The senator in Montana.
Which one?
So the House Speaker is Speaker Len, I think is his name. Great friend of Kratom, or Lair, maybe it is.
Oh, yeah, the speaker. Yeah, okay.
He's a great friend of Kratom. Senator Barry Rusher, who lost his reelection, unfortunately, is a great friend of Kratom. So now we're looking for on the Senate side, but we've got great advocates there. Our problem in Montana, a little bit complex, is that the Yellowstone County, which is the largest county in the state of Montana, contracts out their health department functions to a private entity that is largely an addiction recovery center. And Mr. Fortis, who runs that, was the one who testified at the last hearing, and then his associate, the woman that was also there, anti-kratom, but there was a real question, not only about the reason that addiction recovery center doesn't want kratom, we all know that, but where someone can come in and have the authority contracted to them under Montana state law. That's a real question. So we're going to be there questioning that authority and working with people in Montana. Every state is going to be important. Every state brings its own complexities to it. We just need to work harder and recruit more advocates and do the best we can.
I'm going, Kathleen, if you're talking about the one that was referencing me.
Anti-kratom.
Oh, he is anti-kratom? Which one? There was a couple on that Senate that was sitting up there in that Dios. Is it called a Dios?
Dias.
Dias.
Or Dias. So, Representative Meeks, obviously, if I have his name correct, he was the coroner. He's anti-kratom. And
there was an emotional one. I know there was an emotional one. Got a little bit emotional.
I think Representative Ott probably is anti-kratom, but not for a ban. I think that was clear. She does not want it behind a pharmacy counter, and she doesn't want to ban it. So,
are you talking about Georgia?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, we're talking about Montana.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you're talking about the states. What was her name? She's the blonde lady.
That was Boldman, or the one that went after. Anyway, she blocked me earlier this year in May.
Yeah.
On X. All I did was drop my testimony in her comment section. and I reposted a post asking other people to respectfully drop their testimony, she blocked me. But I call her the Guinness guzzling senator because her profile picture was a Guinness
It
of
is.
her.
She's literally holding a giant Guinness.
So we need to do a genealogical review to see if she's related to Dean Francis, because this genetic tendency to block people that don't agree with you, maybe there's something to that, and we could develop a vaccine that makes people more reasonable in terms of that kind of thing. Who knows?
Kathleen, if you're talking about that guy that pretty much said that, oh, I heard all the testimonies from the people that say that
And I'm
Kratom helped
sorry
him.
it's going to make your life harder, but that's
Yeah.
yeah.
If you're talking about that guy, it was Senator Nolan. If that's the guy you're talking about, Mac. When I was watching that hearing, I had to rewatch it, right, so I could clip up my points for my TikTok videos. Somebody farted.
Oh yeah.
Somebody farted. The one guy that was questioning Matt Salmon, during their going back and forth.
Totally, yeah.
Somebody farted.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know about that, but I can tell you that that Senator Rusher told me that there are more cows in Montana than voters, and I think that that you probably have a common practice. And I know cows fart a lot, so maybe it's just part of the shtick there. I don't know.
I'll have to show you the video later. I was like, and I didn't catch it the first time when we were watching it, and so I go and screen record so I can clip up my TikTok videos, and I was like, you hear this. It's hilarious. Do you have an update for Massachusetts?
That was him. Yeah, Kathleen, that's him. Sorry, I just looked him up so I could see his face.
Yeah. So in Massachusetts, there will be a lawsuit filed the first of the week. I just reviewed all of the filings this morning, and we're going to sue the Department of Health. We think that they cited the wrong authority, and they don't really have what they claim to have. So this will follow in the footsteps of what we did in Ohio and what we did in Florida. We do not like to be in the mode of having to litigate against state agencies. But when we are in that position, the state agencies have to follow what the law says. And we think that we have a very reasonable chance of success in the state of Massachusetts. So that litigation will be filed. The members of the legislature who passed the KCPA language, it's embedded into a revenue bill an economic and development bill in the conference committee, subject to passage by the Senate, and no need to go back to the House unless they amend it. Then we'll get that bill through. And all of that was known to the governor's staff, but the governor did not reach out to the legislature, which helps us because we're talking about, what is a reasonable approach to regulate kratom? And you have a governor that was just looking for votes and a populist cause, as opposed to the reality of what the safety profile of kratom is. So what typically happens after we file these lawsuits is there's a scramble for a way to settle them. And the judges favor that. They want these parties to get this resolved. And there may be a pathway for us to resolve this particular issue through a settlement negotiation. But absent that, we're going to continue the litigation. And I think the legislature is going to be empowered to help us to resolve the issue and strip through legislative action the authority of the Department of Health to do what they've done.
So the lawsuit is pretty much to put a hold on the ban?
Yeah, you file two. One's a complaint where you allege the facts of the matter, and you demonstrate that the action taken by the Board of Health did not comply with Massachusetts law, and the action taken by the governor was inconsistent with that law, and therefore we're seeking a remedy. The second document that's filed is a temporary restraining order, which the judges will evaluate and say, if we have a reasonable basis of success, that they will grant a TRO blocking the state from implementing their ban on kratom. We think that we have that. Now, that's the strength of that TRO document will dictate how reasonable the State Department of Health will be when we have these discussions. This is what happens. the department regulators dominate all of the discussions leading up to a regulatory action like this. Then when their lawyers get involved, when they get sued, suddenly the lawyers, and I hate to utter these words, get more reasonable. And they say, what can we defend? Right? And so they'll start to have a reality check. And I'm sure by the time we get to Senator McKell's nonsense about not trusting the kratom industry, and we don't trust the lawyers, all lawyers will be gone by the time we get to this. But in the interim, we'll have to deal with these lawyers, and we will hopefully be able to persuade them that there is a pathway that accomplishes the 7OH ban, but allows for natural kratom leaf products to be on the market.
I know Caitlin says, not sure if it's okay if I could post this here, but Odie's is contributing a portion of all sales to Massachusetts lawsuit. That's amazing.
That's great.
So guess what? This stuff does not happen for free. Lawyers are very expensive. We've recruited vendors to help us with litigation costs, and we've seen outpouring of support from the industry. Those people that are customers of these companies, fabulous. We really appreciate it, and we'll see where we are in the end. I'm running up on the hour here, but the question was about Florida. We did reach a settlement with the Department of Agriculture. They withdrew their rule. So they're waiting for the new rule, which will be amended by the Attorney General based on what the feds do. And we've been in close communication with them. We think we know where the Florida AG is going to be, and it will clarify some of these critical points that the anti-kratom people are relying on. And we're going to make sure we have safe products with a good regulatory structure. The Department of Agriculture will never be a friend of kratom as long as the current administration and the key people in that administration are in place. But they will have to align with what the rule is by the Attorney General, and they're going to have to align with state law. So hopefully we'll get a bill through in Florida that provides the regulatory framework that leaves less authority to the Department of Agriculture and relies more on a statutory criteria.
There's so many layers of crap you have to deal with, Mac. Like,
I could not get through this other than my confession, which the antikratom.org made a big deal of. There it is. Mac admitted that he's been taking kratom for 10 years.
Yes.
They were shocked.
Yeah.
They were almost as shocked as the Tennessee people.
Yeah, I know.
I've said it dozens of times, but more than dozens of times.
I mean, they act like you're going to be just strung out or something. You know, they act like kratom is just some horrible drug.
Right. And that it's hard. Now, there are people that say that when I make a presentation, it's prima facie evidence that kratom does make you goofy. Right? There's some people that say that, but I don't think they can say, they like to say that I'm somehow stupid. I don't think I'm stupid. I can be misinformed, obviously, but I don't think I'm stupid. They're entitled to their opinion. There's some people who say that kratom is impacting me negatively. I can tell you that ain't true. I just went through my annual physical, and the doctor and I joke about this all the time because I tell him I take kratom, right? And he's become informed about kratom and very interested in it. Not a convert completely, but he said to me that the kinds of things that I have to deal with from a health perspective, because when I was 25 years old, I started racing motorcycles. Actually, I was 24, and I banged myself up a lot. And the reason I did is that I was a very bad desert motorcycle racer. I absolutely loved it. I mean, because I worked my way through school in college selling motorcycles, and I was pretty good at selling motorcycles. And the shop owner gifted me, because I increased his sales so dramatically, one of the fastest racing bikes in the world. It was a Botaco Persang desert racing bike. Now, that's like giving a race car to a teenager. It makes no sense. And that thing was way too powerful. So I banged myself up a lot. And today, at 76 years old, I'm paying the price. So the doctor and I were talking about the fact that I fell in a legislative meeting down in Georgia, where our lobbyist was taking me off to an alcove where we could talk privately, and he knew where he was going. I didn't, and I'm following him closely. And he turns, and there's someone there, so he immediately turns back and he trips me, and I went down. So I banged up my hip, had a hip contusion, but then I had a small fracture in my back. And what's happened is I've got a nerve that's sitting there. So he just asked me, he said, well, I prescribed these opioids for you. Why aren't you taking them? And I said, because I'm on Kratom. I've told you this for years. And he laughed. He said, yeah, I'm not a convert yet, but okay, if it works for you, buddy, you do it, right? And Monday, tomorrow, 2 days from now, I have an ablation procedure where they go in and kill the nerve that's pinched
Oh,
between.
you're gonna do that?
Oh yeah. I got to do it because that nerve is sitting right there on the bone, and it's causing all kind of knee and my feet have this neuropathy that's just horrible. And so anyway, I'm going to do this. But we were talking about generally about how do I manage my pain, and I know this disclosure now will be, oh, Mac is using Kratom for a health benefit. Yes, I am. And guess what? I have the First Amendment right to do so. Thank you so much. So there you have it. But the Kratom, my wife takes it. She uses it. No, she's only 31, I think. She uses it for the increased focus and the pick me up, right?
Mhm.
She uses much lower doses than I do, or serving size than I do. But we are a Kratom family, just so they know. And
Yeah.
they can load on their criticism however they want to do it.
I mean, I used to get the injections done in my back and
Yeah,
my
I did that
spine,
for a while.
and it was just like, it'd be okay for like one day, and then afterwards, it's just like, yeah, it's still there. My pain is still there. They tried to get me to do the ablations, before I got
Yeah.
fired from my doctor, in April 2019. I was signed up to go in and get the ablations done, but I got fired.
I don't know why this is the case with me, but the biggest problem I have is getting up and down with my back. So sitting up, standing from a sitting position,
Yeah.
and then sitting down. But with Kratom, I can walk with the best of them. My wife always criticizes me. I'm walking too fast when we're going through airports. She calls it my golf speed. That I just want to get there, and I don't have any impairment. But I admit that if maybe I could up my dose of Kratom, I'd do better. I don't know. I haven't any need. It's not painful. It's just difficult, right?
Yeah, it's just there.
Yeah, it's just there. So
yeah. Well, imagine how many times imagine how many times you had to sit down and get back up in your 76 years on Earth.
Yeah.
I know. Because I had to get up and spank my kids all the time, right? So that was really hard. And we had 6 of them. And so, it was a lot of work to spank them.
Oh my God, somebody's gonna call CPS.
I
was gonna say somebody's gonna call CPS on you.
It's a joke.
So the truth of it is, as a father, I probably, from the disciplinary standpoint, I was the easy guy. My kids would come to me and I did whatever I could. We hid things from their mother. We did whatever we could in order to make things good, right? And I was not the disciplinarian. My wife was. And the quality of my kids today, and I think we have magnificent kids, was because of my wife. I mean, she really did have that balance. I didn't. I just gave them whatever they want. Occasionally, I was tough on the girls when it came to dating guys. I was a monster in that area.
That's a dad thing. I think that's a dad thing.
But when it came to the day-to-day stuff where we're teaching these kids to be, good people, good citizens, and good friends, I mean, that was my wife's doing. It was like fabulous. But when it came to the guys, I think I may have told you this before, but I got invited by one of my daughters to go to a lunch with a group of girls that were on the cheerleading squad when she was in high school, and we sat down and we're having lunch, and one of the girls said, "Oh, Mr. Haddo, we're so glad you came." She goes, "We were so afraid of you when we come to your house." And I thought, I'm the greatest dad in the world.
Well, you know what? I don't, like I said, you know what? Because you did that cheese thing yesterday, and I order pizza like once a week. And when you did the cheese analogy thing yesterday, that was my dinner last night. So, I
want to eat pizza so bad last night.
Yep. So last night was the night.
I know she didn't like it and she thinks it's absurd, but her point was that anything that activates the mu opioid receptors is an opioid. And that's not accurate. And so I hope when I have the conversation with her that I explained that the activation of the mu opioid receptor does not mean it's an opioid. And I think this is just an area she's unfamiliar with. Again, very smart woman. I don't think it's like she's deliberately saying something isn't true. I think she just doesn't fully understand it yet. But
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have that. I know we'll have that conversation. She really seems like a pleasant person, and we can disagree on things, but not be disagreeable on some of this. And
exercise activates the mu opioid receptor.
it does. It does.
I like 10 minutes in my treadmill workout, I can feel myself getting high.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
I've got to run because I've got a call with the manager that I made a complaint to. And
okay, recap the recap, Mac.
Okay, so we're waiting for the decision by the DEA. We hope that will come this week to tell us where we are. If they're going to extend the comment period of the HHS secretary, assistant secretary, great. If they're going to file there are two scheduling recommendations. They do the 7OH, fine. And then they get more information on the MGM 1516 and pseudodoxil, great. Let's see where we are. We could all speculate, give it our best shot, but we would be 50-50 on any of these and those are not good odds to know what's going on. We don't know. We're going to pursue the Georgia thing. There'll be two more hearings at least, probably only two more moving forward here. So we're going to actively do there. We've got hearings in next week up in North Dakota for the special session on Monday. We have a hearing in Montana coming up next week. We got this litigation that's going on. We're obviously going to cover, and we're working with a number of states where we're trying to track where we are. Pennsylvania, Ohio, this is legislatively, Massachusetts, North Dakota. We've got meetings coming up about the KCPA amendment in Utah. We're working in California. So lots of things going on, and great people at the American Kratom Association who really are putting out a lot of effort. You've got Stephanie Taylor and Taylor Danielle and
Colin.
Colin. They are fabulous people, and we're drinking from a fire hose right now. And we expect to continue to do that. So we're going to do the best that we can to be present everywhere we can to motivate people. If anybody thinks they need help, just contact us, and we're going to do our best to fulfill it as we move along here.
Okay.
Have a good rest of your weekend and good luck on Monday.
Yeah, good luck on Monday.
Yeah, no luck involved with it. This is easy. We'll get through it. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. I don't know.